Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the One Hub Racing Twitch channel for the opening round of Season 19. It is now time for the Pinnacle tier here in Melbourne, Australia. The curtain raiser for this new game, of course, for One Hub, and it should be a really exciting opening round. My name is Jake, I'll be guiding you through the action for this season, and I'm joined by Matt. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's amazing to be back in the commentary box for the Pinnacle tier of One Hub Racing. And how are you tonight?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really excited to see some good racing around what became the traditional, I suppose, traditional home of the opening race of the F1 season, although it's kind of changed, I suppose, recently in the last few years. But yeah, it kind of feels right to be starting in Melbourne. I know it's a track that divides opinion among the drivers and fans, but I don't know, something about starting off in Melbourne just feels very traditional and how it should be.
Yeah, definitely, unless you're talking to someone that grew up before Melbourne was a race, and Australia was the final race of the season, but either way, it's going to be an absolute pleasure to be here tonight, and let's see who can open with the first win of the season, which could set them on their way to an all-important One Hub Racing Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's while we're just in the build-up to getting things going, let's quickly take you through the teams and drivers competing in Season 19. So in the Mercedes, we've got the only Tom 97, and we've currently got an open spot in the other Mercedes. So do visit the One Hub Racing website if you do want to sign up, because there is still a spot open in this top tier. If you believe you've got what it takes to race against these guys, then yeah, go for it. That's what I would say. In the Red Bull, you've got the Confessor and Owen Wyatt 173, who you may have heard on comms earlier this evening. In the McLaren, you've got Conzo 1993 and Nipedius. In the Ferrari, you've got Netsky and Ryderdal. In the Aston Martin, you've got Beasthass and Danestar. In the Alpine, you've got two ERT drivers. You've got Arnau and Samba. You've got another pair of ERT drivers in the AlphaTauri with Khalifa and Josh. And if you could just take me through the rest of the grid quickly, that would be fantastic.
I can, yeah. I can hear some banging. Someone's obviously wanting to get your autograph already, and we've only just started, so that's a great sign for the season ahead. We have drivers. Loads of ERT people. They are pretty competitive between them, and we have some drivers that haven't quite made it, but we have the OP guys in the Williams of Feel Happy and Zane, and we're just waiting for Danestar's teammate. Conzo just joined us, who's teammates with Nipedius in the McLaren, and we have some drivers still to be here. We should be underway in the next few moments though, and cannot wait for this season to get going. It's been one of the highlights of One Hub Racing for a while now, the Pinnacle tier. Probably some of the closest qualifying sessions I've witnessed since I've been commentating here, and I think it's going to be even quicker this time around. Maybe not today because it's a bit of a tricky track, but I think overall on the course of the entire season it's going to definitely bring us a little bit closer at the front, which is all what we want to see. There is some media drivers are asked to do as well. Some drivers will be asked to do extra ones, but there's also the pre-race drivers conferences, or pre-race interviews as they're called. You have the drivers conference where one driver from this tier was grilled from the media, and then you also have the rivalry section. Unfortunately, that the drivers taken for the rivalries didn't offer a response, but the ones that were asked were Silly Sly Guy and ERT Samba, one of which is not here tonight. I understand Samba's not here, so they could be involved in some magic out there on the track overall, but Samba was asked about what, you know what each is about, because they are both ERT guys, but with him not knowing what One Hub Racing is all about, does that hinder him a little bit? If I was answering that, I would have said it might do as he gets up to speed with the league rules, but once he's up to speed with that, his driving will do all of the talking. And of course, Sly was asked, does Samba knowing more about One Hub give him the the rule set and racing? Does he hand in the early advantage? I probably would have said it does for now, but I'm gonna take the advantage when I'm driving. But that's what I would have said. How about you?
I think, and thank you, by the way, for that, just covering there for a few minutes. Yeah, so we're about to get qualifying underway, and should be an exciting session ahead. We've got a 16-car grid for tonight. Lots of top drivers, of course. The reigning champion is on the grid tonight as well. I think that's worth a mention. We got Netsky, who was the Season 18 Pinnacle champion. And we've actually got the Season 18 Precision champion on the grid as well. If I can just find his name quickly. That would be Danestar. So got a couple of champions on the grid here, and you've got to say, I know it's a new game and everything, but kind of gives them a bit of an early advantage, would you say? Just obviously having tasted that glory last season.
Yeah, certainly mentally it would help get off to hopefully a quick start tonight for the season. But it is a long season with very different tracks to come and different handling models, different everything really. It's probably going to take a little bit of time to get properly up to speed, especially the first season through a new game cycle. But I think those two drivers definitely stand out to have the clear advantage at this point. You have two former champions, you can't buy experience like that, and the season before that Nesky was pretty close to winning and just missed out on the final day, so he's been up there for quite a while now, so I'm sure he'll be looking to go for it again, but he will definitely be one of those to watch tonight. He's always good at qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely, and qualifying, obviously, you don't win any points in qualifying, but it's crucial sometimes just to have that good grid spot for the race. And if anything, sends a mental sort of challenge to the rest of your competitors. You know, that you've got the pace and set that early benchmark, particularly on a new game like this where maybe people, I know there was a pre-season race, of course, last week at Brazil, but still maybe there's some question marks over were people hiding some of their true pace. Well, there's no sandbagging anymore. This is where everyone's going to be giving 100%, and this is where we're going to start to see who the real runners and riders are going to be in this Season 19 Pinnacle tier.
Yes, absolutely, we certainly will, and cannot wait to find out where everyone's going to be in the pecking order in the weeks to come. I think tonight's going to give us a bit of an indication, but I think we'll know for sure in rounds 2 or 3 where everyone's going to stack up, and we're pleased to get some racing on the go, and Confessor, I think, is the first on a lap in the Red Bull. As you said earlier, teammates with Owen Wyatt, who is the Pinnacle tier victim of the drivers' press conference this week, and I'll get to him a little bit later on. But yeah, it's great to be back, and racing here has always been fantastic, but I think we're going to be in for a very special season.
Yeah, absolutely, and it all starts here. Confessor then 26.4 for the opening sector of his lap, and now threading his way through his difficult middle part of the lap, coming up towards the Clark chicane at turns 9 and 10. Part of a track that, of course, is getting reprofiled in real life, but isn't implemented as of yet on the game. And now coming up to the most high-speed part of the track, turns 11 and 12, so easy as well, and his exit curve at turn 12 to get it wrong, but the Confessor with no such issues. And then down to turn 13, known as Ascari. I've got to say, they probably could have chosen a better corner to give this name to, in all honesty. I think it's a bit just a simple 90-degree right-hander. I feel like the name Ascari probably carries a bit more weight than that, but through to the penultimate corner, then turn 15, and then turn 16 is quite simple, just an acceleration zone, and ensuring you get the best possible run to the line. The Confessor has had a solid enough lap by the looks of it, and he sets the benchmark at a 120.1. So good effort there, and then I believe we've got Legend just behind, but he has invalidated his lap. So good opening benchmark there, good to get an early time on the board as our now goes into second. And so we're just starting to see the first few lap times coming in, and now riding with the only Thomas, who of course was was 5th in the precision tier last year, so it's quite a step up for him, and it'll be interesting to see how he copes with that step up, although he was racing in Pinnacle back in Season 17, so he's not unfamiliar with this tier, it's fair to say that.
Yes, it is, and we had an early time on the board, and unfortunately for Ryder Dahl, we also have the first retirement of the session, as he has lost it at the, yep, you guessed it, the left-right chicane. I saw him in the background as his teammate went past, but unfortunately, yeah, as you say, Tom was back in this season. He had a bit of time away from it, so he's understanding of what he needs to do, but he's about to finish an invalid lap, but he's going to go and start another one, and there's just some drivers that I'm not familiar with, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they do over a full season. But yeah, it's going to be amazing. And just, you say Ascari, I think of Italy, the final chicane there, not Australia, but yeah, good to know that corner names are being recycled now.
Yeah, maybe could have come up with a different name for it. I mean, there's quite a few what you could call legendary Australian drivers as well, so maybe one they could rename in the future. Josh heading round the final corner, like you say, a lot of new drivers to Vatia. Josh is not one of them, but he goes into 5th with his opening lap. Gonna go right on board with Nipedius now, who is one of the new drivers. Finnish driver in the McLaren for this season. Interesting to see what he can do. Not a name that I'm familiar with at all, so this is really going to be an unknown for me as well to see what he can do. He goes into 5th on his first time lap, but it is last season's Pinnacle Tier champion Netski that is already leading the way, and with a very impressive 119.6.
Yeah, he does that early in the session. He sets a really good time, but then more often than not, it is him that can beat it later on in the session. But while I have a few moments, Owen White's out there, done the time on the mediums, and while I have a few moments, I'm going to mention his driver's press conference, which this week it was his duty as a returning driver. He raced a few seasons ago, had a bit of a break from everything, commentated before in mono racing, but he's back in both the seat and the box, and he's lucky to call the prospect here. I say that because he'll get to call my crashes all season. Anyway, the question that he was asked was, he's been away for a bit, but has the break from mono racing given him a chance to reboot his enthusiasm or anything that was missing, and what are his goals for the season? And he replies, yes, indeed, he has been away for a while. The time away has given him a chance to have a proper break from racing. He's now highly motivated to race again, and he's looking forward to the start of the season. He's here to have fun, and hopefully he can be a consistent point scorer and maybe even take a few podiums too. And I'm sure he can do that because he's more than capable. I know that, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on his return.
Yeah, absolutely. We all know he's a supremely talented commentator, but he's got plenty of good driving experience as well, and he'll be looking to show that over the course of the coming weeks. So good to have him on board for the season, and definitely sometimes a little break is just what you need to recharge those batteries and really find that motivation and enjoyment again, and that seems to be what has done the trick for Owen. Currently then it is Netski on top, but Pia Papi, I'm going to apologise if I've said that wrong. You can feel free to correct me in the chat ready for next week, but yeah, Pia Papi, one of the new drivers, has gone into 2nd. Legend is currently 3rd. He was another one who said in the media day, asked about his opinions of this track, and he actually said it was quite a fun track to drive on. He finds the high-speed corners a good challenge, and he reckons the setup could be a key for him to maybe get a podium today. So he's one of the drivers that enjoys this track, and that may be showing in his early lap time, putting it up into the top 3.
Yes, definitely. Very good sign to start with the top 3. Pia Papi, I believe, is correct. That's how I've been calling it too, so good to know. He's new to the league, as is his OP teammate, who's also in P6, so that's a great start for the early season for both of those, and let's see how much more they can improve later on in the session.
Absolutely. We've got Dane Starr at the moment, just on a lap. I'm just following him through, of course, the Precision Tier champion last season, making a step up to the top tier this time around. So, interesting to see how he gets on in the Aston Martin. Through Sector 1, what sector? 26-2. I think that's a pretty competitive opening sector. And looking pretty solid so far. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 1. I think that's just somebody slowing down. As you mentioned earlier, Ryderdal, unfortunately, already out of qualifying. So he'll be feeling a little bit rusty going into the race, but hopefully it doesn't hold him back too much. Dane Starr through then towards turns 11 and 12. This is such a crucial part of the track to get right. And that was absolutely spot on for what I could see. No issues there at all. Total commitment, total bravery, and thankfully all the reward for his benefit as he goes through the final few corners now. Turn 14, little bit of snap on the oversteer as the car hit the curb. But into the penultimate turn now, looking. This has got to say, to me, this has looked like a pretty solid lap. It's just been interesting to see does it match in terms of outright speed. Dainstar then up to the line he goes, and yes, it does, straight to the top of the timesheets. For the season 18 Precision Tier champion, he topples the Pinnacle Tier champion from last season and takes provisional pole. And Owen Wyatt also up to 4th there, but I've got to say, I thought it at the time. That just looked a supremely good lap by Dainstar.
Yes, it certainly was. I didn't notice any mistakes, but there's a great time as well. 19.3 for Silly Sly Guy Boneski. He's also out there, and he is improving through the first couple of sectors, so this could be very, very tight indeed, as you see the Taz lighting up in all kinds of different colours, and that is amazing to see. But Boneski's coming around the final corner. Dab of the accelerator opens the DRS quite nicely. Can he get it back in provisional? No, he cannot. He's just a little bit slower, but I'm sure he will find a little bit more time, as the session is only about 7 minutes old, so there's just plenty of time still to do that.
Absolutely. And just watching the Confessor, he was actually 1,000 for the second up after the second sector and had a bit of oversteer, so I don't think he's going to improve. I want to see if there's anyone at the moment. Konzo is not on a particularly quick lap. Khalifa, I follow him around, he's done a much better sector 1 compared to what he did before, so he'll be looking to set something a little bit more representative. I believe he did his opening that time on the mediums, so that would explain somewhat of a pace difference. He's 6/10 up through the middle part of the lap, and currently the Alpha Tower is struggling towards the bottom of the timesheets. Khalifa looking for a big improvement here to march himself up that leaderboard and hopefully improve his position. He was in Pinnacle Tier last season. He got 1 podium to his name and finished 7th in the championship, which I would say is pretty solid going. So he should come into the season with a decent amount of confidence, as he nearly runs just that little bit wide. And we can see there, that was like a Mercedes had gone round as Khalifa went past him up to 11th. I believe that would have been the only Toma that would have gone round, as Legend goes up to 3rd as well. And Pierre Papi's on another lap too, as he goes round the penultimate turn. So lap time's coming in thick and fast then. And what can Pierre Papi do here? Currently in P5, but he is going a little bit quicker. What's this going to do for him? It moves him up to 4th ahead of Dainstar. So it doesn't seem like 2 minutes since we were talking about Dainstar putting it on pole with a great lap, and he's now dropped down to 5th. He'll be feeling a little bit gutted about that, I reckon.
Yeah, he certainly can do with times like that, and then you see yourself only 5th. But let's see if Konzo can swallow the party a little bit as well, as he's about to cross the line. Oh no, he's only gone P12. He did improve his position. First competitive lap time on the soft cell, but a little bit slower than what I might expect, but it's solid up there. It's going to give him a good foundation if he can't improve later on in the final 5.5 minutes of the session, which is going to absolutely fly by, I can tell you now. Yeah, but early advantage to Silly Sly Guy.
Yeah, and there's such a good lap time from him. Really came out of nowhere, to be honest. He is one of the new drivers, I believe. I'm just checking. Can't find. Yep, he is one of the new drivers. I thought he was. Just double checking my notes and couldn't find his name. Yeah, so good opening for him. And Netsky couldn't quite match it on his second attempt. Now is on another push lap, but he was a 10th and a half down for him, middle part of the lap, and he's opted to bail out of that one. I think we're in a slight lull of the session at the moment, due to just everyone sort of coming to the pits, getting ready for what will be their final run of a session. It's a good time, really, I guess, to talk about, obviously, a few things to mention. Obviously, One Hub, if you are new to watching One Hub, is a mandatory 2-stop race, so don't be expecting any 1-stop strategies. It will be a 2-stop race, which does, for me, I certainly think adds a lot more to the strategy element of it, and gives drivers a lot more options and freedom during the race, particularly if we have a safety car, which I would definitely say is not unlikely.
Oh, it certainly isn't, especially if a couple of the incidents that have happened in different tiers qualifying happen in the race tonight, for example. That's definitely going to trigger a safety car, and we're down to the final 4 minutes of this qualifying session, and a little bit more than that, because if you are on the lap when the time hits 0, you can complete it, unlike previous seasons where you couldn't, but in real life anyway. But yeah, it's a highly likely we're going to have a safety car here, but also weather is kind of key as well. But I think the 2-stop there is just, it opens up all sorts of options. As you say, if there's another safety car, you can switch onto the better strategy, or if there's later rain, you could use that to your advantage too. So many different ways you can go, many different advantages to have of doing a two-stop, but it's fantastic action, and can't wait for this race to start after this session. But let's see who gets provisional pole and, in fact, actual pole first.
Absolutely, and if you are enjoying what you're seeing here, to everyone that's watching, I do encourage you to follow the One Hub Twitch channel if you haven't already. Also, we broadcast some of the races on YouTube as well, so any likes and subscribers to the YouTube channel would be much appreciated. And we also have Twitter and Instagram pages. All of those can be found either on the website or on the description of this stream, hopefully. So we've got Silly Sly Guy, who's the first guy out there. Oh, I do think Nepedis actually is in front of him, but I'm going to follow Silly Sly Guy round because he's the current provisional pole sitter, and he's going out for his last effort a little bit early, perhaps, and you might have thought, unless he's planning maybe to do 2 push laps, that might be something he's thinking about, but otherwise that's slightly early and might not give him the best of the track conditions.
It might not, but this could be one of those rare instances where the first lap you do is better. You've seen it a few times in real life Formula 1, but right now the temperature out there is pretty good for them. It's 26 degrees track temperature, air temperature is 19 with a little bit of cloud cover, so that could well mean that conditions are going to keep improving, so that is good for him. But it is a little bit early to do, but I don't think he would be trying to do 2 runs because time management in the race is going to be key, and I think he might be in all sorts of trouble if he does that. Is that on in a wall somewhere, or has he just parked it in the pit lane?
It looks like he's... Oh, I'm not too sure. He might have gone out of turn 2 by the looks of it. And Silly Sly Guy was a tenth of a second up through the middle part of the lap, but had an oversteer moment through turn 12 and backed out of it. So I'm going to switch to Nepedius, who himself has a moment at the final corner, and down the straight he goes, and yep, no improvement in validation on that lap. So now I'm going to switch to Pierre Papi to see what he can do on his final effort. And it's a decent first sector. It's kind of comparable to what he did before, but it's in the sort of ballpark he needs to try and improve. So we'll see how he gets on. There won't be any more improvements for R now, of course, and Ryder Dahl, their sessions are over. But let's see what Pierre Papi can do. 2 pretty decent laps so far in this session, so I'm expecting pretty decent things from the driver. And yeah, he's almost a tenth of a second up as he gets to his critical turn 12, and that looked pretty much spot on. So looking pretty good, and he doesn't need to find that much time to jump above Legend, who himself, of course, is on a lap as well. Let's see what he does round the final few corners. Looking pretty solid so far. This One Hub debut tonight, and so far very much impressing. Let's see what he does around the final corner. Currently in P4, but doesn't need to find an awful lot of time to move up at least one place. Where does he go? He goes to provisional pole position by 1,000th of a second. That is incredibly close. And is there anyone around who can take it off him? Maybe Netsky. He is on a personal best in Sector 1. He's a very good middle sector as well. So Pierre Papi's joy might be short-lived because Netsky is absolutely flying.
Don't forget about Silly Sly Guy as well. He's coming round the final corner, who was in provisional pole, and that is the session over for those that aren't on a lap. So this will be it for Sly Guy. Can he put it back on provisional? Yes, he can. 19-0. That is going to take some beating. If anybody can, Netsky can. But let's see what he does as he comes around the final corner, opens the DRS pretty perfectly, and just keeps on going down the straight. How close will it be? It's close, but not close enough. I don't think anyone could beat that, but that is a solid effort from Netsky, nevertheless.
Yeah, as Dane Star moves up to P4, is his last effort, 1:19.4, pretty decent lap time. We've got Legend, who is on a personal best in Sector 1. Let's see how his middle sector stacks up. Again, it's not quite as good, but he is still marginally up on what he did before. He's going to need to find an incredible final sector, as Owen Wyatt jumps up above him into P5 with his final effort. So Legend's going to need to find a bit of time here if he wants to get that P5 back again. We've got drivers retiring from the session. I think this could be the last lap out there at the moment. So what can Legend do? Currently in P6. It looks like pole position for Silly Sly Guy's pretty safe. But can Legend move up from his current position at all? He goes up to 4. Finds a good final sector there to move up with Dane Star as well. But there was no stopping Silly Sly Guy there. Pole position by over 2 tenths. And yeah, well, if Netsky wondered if he's got his work cut out to defend his title, he definitely knows now.
Yes, it definitely reminds me of season 17, where Neski would be pretty quick in qualifying, but he'd always just get a little bit pipped, and then his race pace wasn't as good as it was last season when he won it. So this is shaping up to be an excellent Grand Prix. And then you've got a couple here, like, as I say, Samba is really quick as well. I have no idea where he'd factor in today if he was here, but that's something to look forward to next week. But for now, we have City Sly Guy on pole position.
Yeah, great effort from the Alfa Romeo driver. Pierre Papi in third, Legend fourth, Dane Star, I think a very impressive job as well in the top 5. And all pretty close together, it has to be said. And of course, we got to factor in Ryderdal, who we didn't actually get to see what he could do in qualifying. He could be even quicker than all of these. We just haven't seen it yet. So here we go then. That is the order for qualifying then. 6th place for Owen, 7th place for Zane, the Confessor in 8th, Khalifa 9th. Now remains in the top 10 despite that late crash. Tom Robbo, 11th, gets free choice of tyres, as does Konzo, Toma, Nepedius, Josh, and then, of course, Ryderdal at the back of the field. It'd be interesting to see, outside the top 10, what tyre strategy they go for.
Yes, it would be very interesting to find that out as well. But I think if you're 12th and 11th, you might want to whack on a set of softs, keep with the leaders. But if you're 13th downwards, personally, I would go for the medium tyres. Of course, you have the soft, mediums, and hards available at all tracks. The compounds are different every time, but yeah, that's how I would do if I was 13th or below. I'd fit the mediums. What would you do in that situation?
Well, based on what I did earlier, I did go for softs just in case there was any drama at the start, which it turned out there was. But yeah, just in case there's any drama at the start, taking on the soft tyre at the start for me was the best way to go. And then you've got the option then to run some medium tyres for the rest of the race. Do 2 stints on mediums, if depending, of course, on safety cars and whatever else happens. Just a quick word for our sponsors before we get underway tonight. Next Level Racing, they do sponsor One Hub by providing a Next Level Racing direct drive stand to our driver of the season. That is a new award for this season, and that's sponsored by Next Level Racing. We've also got 3M Sim Racing, who sponsor the league by providing a pair of their sim racing gloves to the driver with the most combined poles and fastest laps. Silly Sly Guy will be happy to hear that, based on that pole position he just put in. And then we're also partnered with Vespertine, who support all our championship prizes, and the ERT team. You've probably seen quite a few ERT drivers on the grid, and the ERT team partner the Going Gets Tough award for this season. So yeah, massive thank you to all our sponsors and partners. Without their support, none of this could happen. So yeah, massive thank you to them.
Yeah, and of course, I mentioned the Taz earlier, which is only possible because of the work of a small dedicated team, but Tebow is the Taz guy who invented the thing, and it's very, very useful for our commentary here at One Up Racing, so thank you to the Taz team as well.
Absolutely, even from a driver's perspective, it's always good to see your data after a race. Often you may be not so inclined to look at it depending on the result, but on a good day, then you're always happy to look at your data and see how you did, and it really does tell you good details of how consistent you were over the course of the race. And this is what these drivers will be hoping for now: consistency, a nice clean race. We've got dry conditions up ahead, and we've already got Zane disqualified from the formation lap, so I'm going to put some contact with one of the Red Bulls, either in front or behind him, and was interested to see what strategy everyone outside the top 10 would go for. And they've all gone alike. Everyone outside the top 10 has opted to start on those mediums. So, yeah, none of them sharing my thought process ahead of this start.
I mean, you can certainly understand why, if you're outside the top 10, mediums is a better tyre to be on. But sometimes you just have to stick with what the leaders are doing, and you could benefit later on in the race. But I have absolutely no objections to anyone running the mediums from the start, especially from P11. You could well be in a box seat for any early issues, but of course any early safety cars, and that advantage is negated. But I don't think they mind too much, really, because anything can happen over the 29 laps, and I'm very sure it very usually does.
Yeah, there'll be action aplenty up and down the field as they head their way through this formation lap. I can't see any sort of tacticalness decisions going on here. In fact, let me just quickly... I was wondering if the Confessor was leaving a slight gap. I know certainly in some of the tiers I've seen already that certain drivers have left huge gaps on the formation lap in an attempt to make their competitors start on much colder tyres. You know, mind games going on before the race has even been going. I kind of like to see that. So, but looks all pretty smooth this time around. It's only Zane who's going to have to worry about the state of the temperature of his tyres when he gets to turn 1.
Yes, he could well be in a little bit of issues there, but right at the back, I'll be interested to see how much he can recover. But the track temperature right now is 28 degrees, the air temperature is 21, so that's pretty warm. So the drivers will be suffering out there a little bit. It is full sun now. There's little to no cloud cover at the moment. So can that help the soft runners get away a little bit quicker, as the softs like the temperatures? But we'll see at the start as we hand over to Jake for the start.
Okay, the lights are on in front of us, and when they go out, we'll be underway for the Season 19 Pinnacle tier here at One Hub Racing. Lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Netsky, it looks like. Actually got a slight jump on the Alfa Romeo, Silly Sly Guy, and it looks like he's got the lead before we even get to turn 1, so all that hard work done in qualifying undone already. Legend in third, Pierre Papi fourth, Owen White and the Confessor, both Red Bulls going up a few places it looks like, and we've got Josh struggling towards the back end of the field, but it's Netsky that leads away at the start. Silly Sly Guy trying to fight back, but it is Netsky that takes the lead back off the start, and in the end it looks like drivers on the outside line had the better grip off the start, and there was nothing that the Alfa Romeo could do to keep the lead.
No, there wasn't. It was a great start, as you say, from Netsky, and you know, it's pretty much as you were. Other than that, all the medium runners are still outside the top 10, which is what you may expect, but sometimes you get lucky and you're able to jump into turn 1. But as it stands down there at the business end, Rydal has improved due to Josh's issue at turn 1, but other than that, there's not really any movement outside the top 10 that I can see.
Yep, and it's looking like Netsky's got under some pressure here from the two guys behind. They've kept very close proximity to the Ferrari driver towards the end of his lap. Danestar and are now battling further down the order. It looks like Danestar's regained that place. Danestar actually, I think, has lost a couple of places off the start, so not the start that he would have wanted. Zane as well, although perhaps understandable given the temperature of his tyres. But it's Netsky that leads away at the end of the opening lap, and 3 newbies behind him, so he's got a lot of, I suppose, one-hubbing experience behind him, but nevertheless, they're definitely taking a fight to last season's champion in these early stages. And also good to see Owen completing the top 5 at the moment. A pretty solid start for both Red Bulls, really.
Yep, you got to be pleased with that. Both Red Bulls are running pretty much line astern, and yeah, that's great for them. We've hyped them up a little bit today, but so far we've realised that Owen Wyatt is still as quick as we remember, so that is great to see. But at the front, you have Netsky's gonna call on all of his championship winning experience to keep these quick guys behind him, and we will be in for one amazing battle if they can get this chicane right, which they all have so far. But when you push in, can you still do it then? And that's a very early time penalty for the Confessor there, but I'm sure he won't be the last to pick up one of those.
No, that's not what you want on just lap 2 of proceedings. He's already got a penalty, and he's actually coming under a bit of pressure from the guys behind. He's dropping away from his teammate Owen and falling into the clutches of Danestar now and some of the other guys behind. So maybe the Confessor just struggling to get into a groove on those soft tyres at this early stint of the race. And then back at the front, we've got Silly Sly Guy right behind Netsky. He's putting all the pressure in the world on. They've dropped Legend ever so slightly. And Silly Sly Guy looking to back up that pace he showed in qualifying. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 3. Looks like Josh has had an issue coming out the final corner by the looks of it. And we've got a virtual safety car as a result.
Yeah, I noticed on the tyres that he has broken his wing a little bit, which is probably why he had a little bit of spin. But as he's spun, he's damaged his wing even further, so he will be struggling like mad to get that car back to the pit lane to make a very early stop. But the VSC may help him a little bit there, but if it was a full safety car, that would help him even more. But so far, he's having a bit of a nightmare start to the season.
Yeah, not the start he would have envisaged when he woke up this morning, but a long way to go yet, and lots of things could still happen. Virtual safety car is still out at the moment, and it really is. You've got to be so careful with the Delta You don't really want to give any time away, but you've also got to get a penalty. And look at this, such a fantastic restart from Silly Sly Guy. He might have caught Netsky napping here. Around the outside into the Ascari corner he goes. Oh, it's so close. And they're going to continue to go side by side all the way through turn 14. Is there going to be enough space for the pair of them? It is. Oh, and there's a bit of wheel-to-wheel contact there. But Silly Sly Guy has made his way up the inside. And you have to say, that was a perfectly done virtual safety car restart from the ERT guy. And he managed to get the lead off Netsky, but Netsky fighting back now to turn 1. This battle is far from over, and Netsky retakes the lead through turns 1 and 2, but this could be an opportunity on the exit, but no, if anything, Silly Sly Guy is now going to come under threat from Legend. All the way around the outside, the Haas goes, and this Silly Sly Guy about to lose 2 places at one go. Yes, he is. Legend up to 2nd, and Silly Sly Guy was 1 point dreaming of being in the lead, is now down to 3rd.
What a fantastic restart that was, and I was on board for the whole thing from Legend's point of view, and I'm glad you brought it up because that was a fantastic overtake from Legend as well. Sly Guy's had a bit of a struggle after the restart, but he's still within touching distance of Legend as the Josh has had about enough of that. So I think that's understandable. It's early on in the season, but I guess he was struggling with setup or something because he has a few uncharacteristic spins at corners he probably shouldn't be spinning out, but that could well just be the nature of the game so far. But
oh, Legend going for the race lead on Netsky, and there's a bit of contact between them. Netsky's pushed wide, and Legend takes the lead. It wasn't entirely clean, but nevertheless, Legend takes the lead. Netsky had to run a little bit wide, but the overspeed he had with the help of ERS enabled him to make that overtake possible, and Legend firing on this restart, now in the lead of a race. Can he hold it up to turn 1, or is Netsky going to fight back? No, it's Legend who leads away now, so another change for the lead. We've had 3 different leaders in the last lap of this race. And who said you can't overtake in Australia?
Well, these guys clearly didn't get that memo, did they? They are going for it, and it's fantastic to see. And Silly Sly Guy is coming under pressure from Pierre Pappy and Owen White behind as well, so there's going to be a 5-car train for the lead if this carries on very much longer, and that is going to be fantastic to see in the early stages of this season. 5 cars fighting for position for the lead, although Owen White does do a little bit of him, went a little bit too deep, so he's dropped off the back a little bit, but still the potential of a 5-car battle is still there.
Absolutely, especially if these guys go back into wheel-to-wheel combat again and almost help Owen back into the fold, as it were. We've got a couple of pit stops further down as well. Dane Star and I now have gone for early stops. I don't know if those were damage related or if that's strategy, but either way, that's dropped them down towards the rear of the field. Of course, Dane Star had a very good qualifying up in the top 5, so not the ideal start for him, but we'll see how it works out once everyone else pits. But it is still Legend that leads the way, but there's so little to call in it at the moment. But you almost suspect Legend's gone round at the penultimate turn. I don't believe that. One of the slowest corners of the track, and the back end just would not live with the torque demands. But he placed on it, and he's gone round, and all his hard work undone. He drops to 6th, and wow, I mean, there's a lot of corners around this track where you usually see drivers losing it. That is not one of them. I have got to be honest. That was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I think it caught him out as well, but just to touch on Arnold's early stop, Arnold's was for damage. He had minor damage and thought it might as well change it, which, you know, it makes sense. He was on softs anyway, so he's gone a little bit earlier than he's gone to try and do an undercut, which, talking of undercuts, Khalifa is a bit of a master of that sometimes. If he can get it right, he likes to use the undercut, so if Khalifa pits early, watch out for him later on in the race. Don't know if that's going to help this season, but he's done it in the past. But this battle for the lead is just sensational. Owen White is back in the groove now as well. He is gaining a little bit on Pierre Pappy, but they are taking each other along, and Legend, unfortunately, is still there in 6th place. He's just giving the Confessor a little bit of a hard time. He is gaining hand over fist on Confessor, who seems to be a little bit slower down the straights, which gives Legend the more advantage here, but this is a fantastic race so far.
Absolutely, the race lead changing hands all the time, and you just wonder where the next sort of twist in the tail is going to come from, as Silly Sly Guy gets super close to the back of Netsky, who decides to pit. So an early stop there for Netsky, protected against the undercut by sort of triggering it himself, and he makes that early stop, and the trick now for him will be to see if he comes out in some clear air, because that will be key for him to make this early pit stop work.
Yeah. Clean air will definitely help to make it work. Otherwise, he's going to have a whole range of issues which could lead to understeer, could lead to the tyres getting too hot, oversteer, or just all of the above, really. And that's not really what you want to do in the early stop. It is a risk, but I think these drivers can make it work. I'm just checking the TAS at the moment. OP Zane has the best Sector 1 of the race with the 27.3, and Sector 2 and 3 are owned by Silly Sly Guy, so this race is nowhere near of in terms of laps, and I still don't think we're going to know who's going to win until they've crossed the line.
Absolutely not. There's so many drivers in contention here. I'm just watching Legend at the moment, who, like you say, was gaining rapidly on the Confessor and wants to try and make an overtake stick as he tries to recover after that early mistake. Looks like he's got a pretty good run out of turn 12. Is he going to have a go into Ascari? Turn 13, he drives up the inside, and nothing really the Confessor can do, although there has to pick up some oversteer on exit. But I almost feel like the Confessor decided against firing back. I feel like he knows at the moment he just hasn't got the pace as he nearly loses the back end of a car under braking to 15. Legend actually pits, as does Silly Sly Guy and Owen. Pierre Pappy carries on, so the trick. What will be interesting now is see where Netsky is in relation to these guys as they come out of the pits.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on that. It's going to be pretty close, I think. Owen is now no longer strangely. They are coming out, so Netsky is coming over the start-finish line now. It's going to be close, but I think he may just about have this as a yellow in Sector 1. If that overtake is legal, then he's got the move done, and he has. There is still a yellow flag, but the game is not asking him to give it back, so Netsky P9. So that's a good undercut use there.
Yeah, really well done that from Netsky. Had a good lap on those medium tyres, and he's enabled him to keep that lead. Good. It's a good thing to do that, you know. Often as a leader, you're always worried about the undercut. I mean, I guess the best way to solve that problem is by just pitting early yourself, and then no one can undercut you. So, almost taking the initiative there rather than worrying about someone else doing it. And good stuff from Netsky there. It'll be interesting to see what the difference is like on the medium tyre as the Confessor picks up another penalty. I had a perfect view of that as he used too much curb at turn 12. To be honest with you, probably not deliberate, because I don't really feel like using too much curb at turn 12 is a good strategy anyway, so I don't think that's really be what he intended to do.
No, I don't think so. It's just sometimes you give it a little bit too much, and the game's like, enough of that. Because the game's stewards actually report people for doing that, and that's not going to help either, speeding the pit lane. That's just a lapse of concentration, I think. He's having a bit of a nightmare lap there, but Tom Rollo is having some early laps out in the lead, and he's in a world of his own, which is great. But you have Thomas, who's also doing quite well at this stage, and Konzo up into P3. The medium runners are now seeing the advantage of that decision. But, of course, it is a two-stop race, and they need to try and pull out a gap on people that are on fresher, better tyres than them. So this could be an incredible race, and Nepidius joins the penalty party, and my voice has decided to leave me, but it'll come back in a second.
Yeah, I think I'm hopefully not for his case, but I'm worried that Zane has kind of forgotten about the two-stop thing at One Hub, because mandatory two-stop rule, because I can't help feeling that the hard tyres wouldn't be really a tyre you'd really want to use much in this race if it's going to be a two-stopper. So whether that was something the game did for him or something he's forgotten, either way, hopefully for his case, he does remember to make the second stop. Otherwise, that could come back to bite him later on. Silly Sly Guy all over the back of Netsky. So Netsky unable to pull away on those mediums. He's still under so much threat from the Alfa Romeo, and they've got a bit of a lead over Pierre Papi and Owen Wyatt now, just building that gap ever so slightly after the pit stops. These are your provisional lead, well, your race leaders, as it were. Obviously, the guys in front have yet to pit, so these are the effective race leaders once everything works itself out. And Netsky under all sorts of pressure from this Alfa Romeo driver, who's having a stellar debut so far.
Yes, it is absolutely stellar, but look at these lap times. They are tumbling as well with the fresher tyres. But Silly Sly Guy all over the back of Netsky, not for the first time today, and he's going to try it into turn 3, but Netsky takes the inside line and says, not today, son. You just wait a little bit longer. This is going to be a sensational battle.
Yeah, this is not going to be oh, we've got a mistake. What's happening? Konzo has spun round in the McLaren. Oh, disaster for Konzo. And not what he would have wanted at all, running the alternate strategy. But that's kind of been put to pay now. Looks like he lost it maybe on exit of turn 5. and not at all what he would have wanted. And but I think you have to try and recover to the pits on that one and just see where the rest of the race takes him. Just watching Silly Sly Guy, and I've got to say, just ever so slightly, you can see Pierre Papi and Owen just beginning to close the gap to these pair. So maybe these two battling is going to allow the other drivers to join the fold again. These two haven't got as much of a pace advantage as perhaps they would like.
No, that's a very good point. And Konzo, he's trying to recover to the pits, as you mentioned. He does have a really badly damaged front wing, so he's crawling his way around, just trying not to lose it again. But I'm sure he'll make something work. He's quite resourceful, is Konzo, and let's see what he does there. But Owen White is the fastest man out there at the moment. He's just lit up the purple sectors everywhere and set the fastest lap of the race. So Owen is on the charge, but at the moment, I'd say the battle to watch is Nepidius and Ryderdale. Two of the people that started at the back are now battling for P3, and it is pretty close between them as well.
Yeah, and very soon they're going to be joined by Netsky and Silly Sly Guy too. They're going to be joined right up to the back of this group, and it might help Netsky in a way if he's got his teammate involved in that battle in front. I don't know how much the Ferrari drivers will help each other, but nevertheless it might benefit him. Ryderdale currently battling with Nepidius, Nepidius one of our race premium drivers, and having a pretty solid showing thus far, and keeping on the alternate strategy could come into play later on. I'm interested to see where the likes of Tom Robbo and the only Tomer sort of feed into play as the race carries on. But here we go, so Sly Guy up to turn 13 around the outside once again. Netsky didn't allow this to happen before, but he might not have a choice this time. He's got the higher ground. We're going to continue to go side by side through 14, and actually the Silly Sly Guy backs out of the move. Looks like he could have tried to go for it a bit more there, but opted against it. So the battle rages on, but maybe the Silly Sly Guy could have taken a little bit more risk there, but probably looks at a lap counter, sees there's a long way to go in this race yet, and this battle's really hotting up, and it is bringing Pierre Papi and Owen right into play as well.
It is. I think he's used a little bit of discretion there, because he knows that if he stayed there, he would get the DRS to try and get it down into turn 1, but he didn't quite get it done into 3 either, which is a brave place to try the overtake. But Netsky is ever resourceful and making his car as wide as he can. But this is definitely, as you say, bringing Pierre Papi and Owen White into this battle as well, which could well be for the lead in the later stage of the race. But they've just got to keep racing to get there. But Tomer and Ryderdale are enjoying their time at the front, but they have yet to stop, and everyone else has done at least one. So this is incredible action here, and I think it's only going to get better from now.
Absolutely. We may have lost Legend from that battle temporarily, but there's still every chance he could come back into play. As Owen picks up a penalty, that's his first penalty in the race, and he had to back out of turn 12. Maybe the dirty air just get into that Red Bull there. He had to back out, and here we go, Silly Sly Guy up the inside this time of Netsky. Netsky, though, fighting back with a better exit up to 14. They're going to continue to go side by side. This is super close. And Silly Sly Guy completes the move. There was a bit of contact there, slight contact. And fair play to them. They gave each other just enough room to make that work. But Netsky's going to be fighting back, I suspect, any second now. And Silly Sly Guy knows it as well. He's going as defensive as he can. But there's not much he can do with the overspeed of the Ferrari has got. And down the inside he goes, and he could come under threat from the drivers behind, and doesn't look like it, but he may fire back at Netsky once again. No, he doesn't. Netsky keeps the lead, but he's having to work so hard for this. He'll definitely know he's been in a race, no matter what the result is come the end of this one.
Yes, he's not used to fighting for it quite this hard. This is going to be an incredible season if they can keep this up, but this is, of course, only round 1 of a 10-race calendar, and then I'm curious to see what happens for the rest of this race. But Silly Sly Guy is also up there as well, and Netsky is definitely going to feel it, as you say. He's going to be thinking, I've only done 13 laps and these guys are all over me. How much can he hold them off? Will he even be thinking of that? Is he just trying to take it one lap at a time? And it looked like he had a little bit of a slide there, but probably not. There's a car just gone round in the background. I didn't see who it was. But
it's Owen!
Yellow flags are out.
It is Owen round, and he looks like he's lost his front wing, if I can get a right angle there. Yes, he has. Front wing completely off that Red Bull, and it's a shame for him. I mentioned on the last lap he was having trouble at turn 12, and it looks like it's continued on to a much greater extent this lap. It's a real shame for him. He's having a fantastic race up to that point, but sadly for him, Not gone the way he wants it. And wow, what a move that was. Just the slightest bit of space up the inside. But Silly Sly Guy took it and retakes the lead off Netsky. But for how long? Because Netsky's going to have a run up towards turn 3. Who's going to be later on the break? Silly Sly Guy has it covered this time around. But I've got to say, Netsky, I don't think he wanted to give the Alfa Romeo the inside. But the Alfa Romeo found the tiniest of gaps to make that move work.
I was going to say, I don't think he had much of a choice. The Alfa Romeo just took it from him. This is great stuff, and Pierre Pappy's going to get a bird's eye view of this as well. We're saying this a lot, but if he can just stay within that window, DRS may come into favour for him, and he can get even closer still. But Netsky, of course, just gets a 3-second penalty as well. That is how hard he's having to work today, and we are about halfway through the race as well. So I've never seen Netsky fight like this before. This is brilliant to see. His consoles out there on fresh soft by the look of it is lighting up the leaderboard. But Legend, one of the early contenders for the win, is having a bit of a less than stellar afternoon from his little incident earlier, which I don't think was any of his fault. It's just sometimes dirty air happens that way. You saw with Owen Wyatt, who's also pitted now onto another set of mediums. So he's still in this race, and of course points for the top 12, so he's not out of it. And of course you have the, I believe, the fastest lap points for inside and outside the top 10 as well. So there's always something to play for in One Hub Racing.
Absolutely. You got plenty of rewards available to all drivers, no matter how your race has gone. And for Owen now, he can take those medium tyres to the end, and who knows, maybe a late safety car, maybe just some good pace on those medium tyres, and he could find himself maybe recovering a good spot back in the top 10. I want to be showing potentially a few more of the drivers, but I've got to say I'm struggling to take my eyes off this battle for the lead at the moment. It's absolutely incredible. But that penalty for Netsky just shows, he's not, he's a reigning champion. You might think, is he maybe just holding back a little bit here, giving the new guys, a bit of a leg up, I suppose, in the opening race. No, he's pushing to the limit. And as we've just seen, he's gone a bit beyond it as well, picking up that first penalty. But I'm just looking at Pierre Pappy here because, he's always been thereabouts without ever really being at the centre of any of the battling.
Yeah, he's always there, just in the background, watching on, hoping that he's going to get the opportunity. And if he stays in that window, as I said moments ago, the opportunity will come later on in the race. He's just got to keep doing what he's doing now. He's having an absolutely brilliant race. But as is Sly Guy and Netsky, the leading 3 or 4 cars at any one time have been absolutely fascinating to watch, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Even with the 3-second penalty, you would still say that Netsky, if any of the cars around him have a slightly slower stop, he will be able to pull that gap out later on in the race, and this is getting exciting.
Absolutely. Just keep an eye on a battle further down as well. Khalifa quite close to the back of Dainstar in the battle for P7. Of course, Dainstar making that early pit stop, so his medium tyres are a bit more worn than Khalifa behind him, so expecting Khalifa to maybe go on the offensive against the Aston Martin driver, but not quite close enough on this occasion. I'm going to keep an eye as well. Here we go. This is a potential battle going on here. Nepidius going around the outside up to turn 3 on Arnaud, and with those soft tyres, he managed to make that move stick pretty nicely up to P12 for Nepidius. Not someone I've seen much of in this race so far, but in the top 12 now, and looking like he's got some pretty decent pace.
Yeah, it's looking like that. He's taken to these soft tyres quite well, but I'm on board with the other Williams, as we were mentioning Pierre Pappy earlier. I'm on board with OP Zane, who, as you mentioned time ago, he's running the hard tyre, and that stinks of forgetting what's out. That's a shame. And
that's a safety car.
That is helpful. That is quite helpful for a lot of these guys. And that sound you just heard is Netsky breathing a massive sigh of relief. He can have a little bit of a rest, and they've all come in. Yeah,
and just seeing as well is that any drivers, maybe Tom Robber has to queue a little bit because everyone's going to be coming in now. With the amount of time that's left, interestingly, this is an interesting change of strategy here. You've got Silly Sly Guy and Pierre Pappy on softs. In fact, a lot of drivers are going for softs here to the end, but Netsky's gone for mediums. What do you make of that strategic choice?
It's a brave one. You can understand why everyone's gone for Arnold. You don't want to be doing that, mate. 5-second penalty speed in the pit lane. That's the second time that's happened today for someone. But yeah, the strategy is interesting because while the softs would make it to the end, they are going to be very susceptible to not being able to make it the grip that they need to defend from Netsky, who's done this before and it's worked out for him, and I think he's trying to tap back into that. It's a great strategy he pulls off, but of course, for a while, the softs are going to have the advantage.
Just having a look at the position gained while we're under safety car conditions, and you know, it's incredible, really. We've had so much battling going on at the front. I couldn't quite believe this when I flicked the menu over. The top 4 positions haven't changed from qualifying. I find that so hard to believe with the amount of battling we've had. The big winner, though, gotta say, Tom Robbo, kind of gone under the radar a bit. Ran the alternate strategy at the start, but he's coming right into play now, and he's currently running in P5. So, under the radar, but you've got to say, a very strong race there from Tom Robbo, and at the moment, at least, looking like a big haul of points coming Alfa Romeo's way.
Yep, it's definitely looking that way, but he's still got some work to do to get it, and as you say, that is under the radar pick, but we did mention it at the top. Medium runners, look out for them at the end of the race, because they could be thereabouts, and Tom Robbo's proving it to be the way, but again, it's a long way to the end, and Dainstar is going to be hunting him down all the way, so don't count anyone out yet, but that is quite insane that the top 4 have not really changed position, even though they've been in the lead, not in the lead, in the pits. It's incredible. Like, honestly, this race has got everything right now, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And even now, when you think like we've got potentially, what, an 11 lap sort of sprint to the end, you've even got the difference in tyres. You've got Netsky, Confessor and Khalifa in the top 10, all on mediums, whereas those around have gone for softs. So you've even got the difference there, and you suspect, particularly at the restart, that the guys on mediums are going to have to be a bit careful for those opening couple of corners, because the grip levels will not be what they used to, so they may have to proceed with caution, and that could provide opportunities, particularly for Pierre Papi, who we've not really seen drive in an offensive manner up to now in terms of it going on the offence, but he could very well go on the attack on this restart and take advantage of that.
Yes, he could. He's just been, as we said, he's just been sitting behind the leaders, just waiting for his opportunity, and I think if he wants it to happen, he's going to have to go and grab it, because on those softs, he's going to have to try and get past Netsky really quickly, otherwise he's not going to be able to find a way past, because Netsky, as you saw earlier, Sly Guy had to just throw it down the inside at the smallest of the gaps, and Netsky had no choice but to let him through, and I think Pierre Papi's going to have to take a page out of that playbook, otherwise he could be sitting P3 for the rest of this race. But that's not such a bad thing, but he'd want more than that on those tyres.
Absolutely, and he might be looking as well, thinking Netsky's got a penalty. Silly Sly Guy, I'm potentially fighting him for the win here. I need to sort of clear this Ferrari, so I don't have any sort of car in between me and what will potentially could be his main target if he stays penalty free. So that's something as well as we want to bear in mind. But safety car's coming in at the end of this lap. Silly Sly Guy will become the effective safety car now, and it's up to him what pace he runs it at, and when he decides basically to step on the loud pedal and try and catch the guys out behind him. It's very much it's almost like a game of chess at this point. You got to you want to stay on it, but also not too on it, but you go slamming into the back of the next car, but you also don't want to be caught napping when the restart happens. So you really got to have your wits about you here. And when does Silly Sly Guy decide to go? He's still not gone yet, but he's going to surely put the power down as soon as he gets on the final corner. He goes now. Right, that is a super late call on the restart, and Netsky steers with him, but it looks like further down Tom Robbo is making an opportunity to go past Legend. Down the inside, is he going to make it? No, he doesn't. Tom Robbo has to slot in behind, but it is as you were, despite the very bunched up restart that we had there. And got to say, fair play to all the drivers, they pulled that off pretty nicely. But it is still Sly Guy that leads the way, and he's going to try and pull away now from Netsky on tyres, which should, in theory, give him a little bit more grip, particularly in these next sort of 3-4 laps.
Yep, the next few laps is going to be key to everyone's race here, especially the leaders that are on SARS. But Netsky just has to try and hope that he's making them take too much out of them towards the end of the race. But that was an absolutely phenomenal restart from everyone. There's not really any messy restart there, and he picked his time to go and did it perfectly. Netsky was all over it though, and you can't fault him, because if he'd have gone straight away, he'd have been a sitting duck, whereas doing it that way, he had half a chance to keep the lead, but we've lost Khalifa.
Khalifa's gone, turn 12 by the looks of it, and we've
another one.
we complimented everyone's ability under the safety car to keep it clean and tidy. Well, that was just a dress rehearsal. We're going to have to go again. We've got another safety car. So, Silly Sly Guy's work, which, to be fair, at that point had built him over a second lead over Netsky, is just kind of been wiped out, and he's going to have to do it all again. He could almost probably take what happened last lap as a bit of a practice run, and this could end up being a real thing.
Yes, it could be, but I think Silly Sly Guy may have to try something different to what he's just seen, because it's still fresh in Netsky's memory. So Sly Guy may have to try and go a little earlier, because he can't really go later, because otherwise he's going to be, well, out of it. But so it's going to be interesting. He's got some time to think about it. But yeah, it's unlucky to lose Khalifa as well. We don't usually see Khalifa in a wall. He's pretty good at bringing it home, so it's unfortunate for him. But just one more retirement on, if it's not him, gets a point. He's in the pits again, so he's having a shocker today. He's just come out on fresh softs, and I don't know. It's all happening today. Everywhere you look, there's battles, and that is just what you want to see.
Yeah, and Khalifa was running in the top 10 at the time of his crash, but he was one of those on medium tyres, and I mentioned the importance, really, especially those on mediums, just taking a little bit more caution in that opening lap of the restart, and just shows those tyres, when they're not up to temperature, it's so easy for them, particularly on this game, to bite, especially when you introduce them to a curb, as it turns out. But really, bad start to the season for AlphaTauri, double retirement for two drivers that had a pretty solid season in Pinnacle tier last time around. This is not the start to season 19 that they would have wanted, and they'll be hoping for better when we go to Bahrain next week, which it's fair to say is quite a completely different challenge to Melbourne.
Oh, it's definitely a different challenge, but it's got its fair share of challenges, especially turn 10. If you get that wrong, you're going to be in all sorts of pain. But of course, that's not the only problem area. You've got turn 11, turn 12, and of course, through the fast left, right, left section, the end of Sector 1, beginning of Sector 2. So that is going to be challenging to see how all the drivers negotiate that. But that is next week. We still have 8 or so laps of green flag racing to go. I'm not including this lap because we're still behind safety car, but I imagine it will be in the next lap. So we're going to have 8 laps, and it's going to be a sprint finish. So that is something to look forward to in the interim.
Absolutely. And you've got, I think as well, just thinking about it, this extra sort of safety car period, which obviously removes the amount of laps left, this is kind of really bad news for anyone that's got a lot of penalties. So I'm looking here, you've got Legend on 6 seconds, both McLarens have got 6 seconds of penalties, and then the real loser out of these safety car periods has got to be the Confessor with 9 seconds of penalties. That's really going to impact on his finishing position, you would think.
Yeah, that's always the problem when you see someone get a penalty in the first few laps. You know, if they get any more than that, they're going to be in all sorts of pain, especially with the late safety car. His chance of points has dramatically decreased, but I wouldn't say it's completely over. But he's just got to keep it as clean as he can and hope that those behind him makes them work for it. 9 seconds will put him out of the points at the moment, but you know, I think he's got about enough pace in him in green flag racing to pull the gap out, but he is on mediums and people behind him are soft, so it's going to be difficult for him, but it's not impossible.
Now we could potentially see some more drama at this restart. Safety car should be in at the end of this lap. Let's find out if that is the case. Yes, indeed, safety car is in this lap. And now, once again, it's going to be a real game of mind games. Like you mentioned before, Netsky's kind of going to be ready for Silly Sly Guy to pull the same trick again, so maybe Silly Sly Guy has to try something different, or maybe goes for a double bluff and does exactly the same thing, because, you know, it's almost getting into the mind of your competitor and trying to figure out what they're going to do. But I'm really intrigued now to see how Silly Sly Guy approaches this restart.
Yeah, it's definitely intriguing. As you say, he could pull the double bluff and do exactly the same thing, because I think Netsky would assume something different, but he's got to be ready to go. Whatever Sly Guy decides to do, we're going to find out very shortly as they're just rounding the final corner. And he's gone a little bit earlier this time, and yeah, it was different, and he's caught him napping, so that's a great start there. Or can Pierre Papi get in ahead of Netsky as he goes into turn 1? I don't think so, not on this occasion. Legend has a look just to trick him, but Tom Robbo is now the man on the charge as well.
Yeah, clean restart once again, and Silly Sly Guy did do something different, and it ultimately worked out. So 2 very good safety car restarts, not just from the leader, but from the entire field there. Everyone keeping it very neat and tidy, which is really good to see. And once again, Silly Sly Guy pulling out that lead over Netsky. Once again, those medium tyres just not quite firing up the same way those soft tyres do, which is to be expected. But the crucial thing here, of course, for Netsky is when DRS comes into play in the next few laps, he'll want to be within a second of Sly Guy, otherwise he's going to come under all sorts of pressure. So already he's drifted outside that 1 second window, and that's going to be a concern for the reigning champion already.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern there, but of course the good thing about the double safety car period there is LP Zane got a chance to get off the hards. Whether he knew that it was a two-stop strategy anyway is now a moot point, because he's done the mandatory 2 stops. And Taz says that everyone has, so that's great news for him. Some have done 3, in fact, but yeah, everyone's done at least 2, which is what you have to do here.
Yeah, great news there for Zane, and good to see that he's made a pit stop either through design or by sort of the addition of a safety car. But I've got to say, what a lap time. Silly Sly Guy's just done 121.2. That's an incredible lap time in the race. And just look at the gap he's pulled over Netsky. He's going to come under threat here from Pierre Papi. Is he going to go down the inside into 3? He is. Oh, maximum steering lock on Netsky. Positioned his car perfectly to keep that place. But this is just allowing the Alfa Romeo to escape up the road, and no one really has an answer for Silly Sly Guy's pace. And I've got to say, he's kind of taken me by surprise as well. I didn't really know too much about him coming into this, but definitely know all about him now.
Yeah, you certainly do, and I'm learning so much about some of these drivers as well. They're all made of stern stuff, I can tell you, but that is just... Yeah, I think Pierre Papi's on the ascendancy now. He's going to be on the attack for Netsky. He's going to be in all sorts of trouble. And of course, Legend's just behind Pierre Papi as well. So this could be a 3, maybe 4 or 5 car battle for the final spot on the podium. If it happens to be that way, as Toma just gets a penalty there, so that's not going to change much. It's going to give Confessor a slightly easier time, as he's got less of a gap to bridge now. But yeah, unfortunately, we have lost 3 cars, as Khalifa, Owen, and Josh very early on there for Josh, and Khalifa under the first safety car just after the restart there, and Owen, unfortunately, a little bit earlier than that. But we've got a handful of laps to go, and I have still no idea who's going to win. It's incredible, and I cannot wait to find out who's going to take the prizes home today.
Yellow flag in sector 1. Ryder Dahl has had an issue in the other Ferrari by the looks of it out of turn 2, and that's dropped him to the tail end of the field. So while one Ferrari is trying to hold on to second place, the other Ferrari dropping out of the points at the moment. So a disaster there for Ryder Dahl, who was running up in 10th prior to that issue. I'm just on board with Legend at the moment, just watching this battle up ahead. Silly Sly Guy's absolutely gone. 3 seconds of lead up front. I find it hard to believe that even a driver of Netsky's caliber can pull that back unless there's a mistake from the race leader. But Legend, once again, looking super quick at this stage of the race, actually putting a lot of pressure on that Williams car with Pierre Papi. Is he going to be in a position here to potentially make a move? Of course, the Williams has DRS as well, and that counters some of that advantage. But Netsky holding on to second at the moment. Might not have the pace to challenge the race leader. We've got another yellow flag at X3. That's Konzo this time. So Ryder Dahl's back in the points, as it were, because Konzo's now the latest to come across at turn 12. So Netsky might not have a pace to potentially get the win here today, but he's putting up all kinds of a defence for his second place.
Yeah, of course, even if you take away Netsky's 3-second penalty, it's still a tough ask for him to get the win. So you're going to be relying on a mistake from Sly Guy there, but I don't see one of them coming. But yeah, Ryder Dahl and Konzo have a little bit of contact earlier, and that's why they've switched positions. I think Konzo's struggling after that, and Konzo's now in the pits, of course, after that collision. So Ryder Dahl back in the points, and that's just why I think the management gave points for top 12, because it's never giving up, is it? And that's always good to see the rewards for those that keep going.
Yeah, it's good to see drivers keeping going. And for Konzo, even now, he might be struggling at the back, but all he needs is one more retirement, and he is in the points again. So, you know, it's every motivation for him to keep going and try to get that position. Legend with another penalty. That's up to 9 seconds for him now, and that's going to be really tough to bridge. He's going to really feel that one at the end of a race, especially when you see the gaps sort of from second all the way down really to sort of around Zane in 9th. The gaps are so small that by having that amount of penalties, it's really going to impact on your finishing results. So Legend showing a lot of pace tonight, but those penalties are going to ultimately impact on where he finishes.
Yes, that is a bit unfortunate to see that have been the case, but of course, if you hadn't have tried to push too hard, you might not have got all the penalties anyway, and of course it's going to bite double because of the late safety cars. But if there wasn't, I think he would have been okay.
Yeah, it's risk versus reward, and ultimately on this occasion, the risk maybe not worth a reward ultimately, but it's all about how the race pans out. As the Confessor, I believe, just fended off the only Toma. Or actually, he might have got that place, I'm not too sure, but the Confessor in front of the Toma now, and Zane looking to try and capitalise as well. Further down, this is a battle towards the tail end of the top 10, but nevertheless, all really close here, and kind of what we saw earlier. It's almost a case of deja vu again, that once again, there's a group sort of pulling away from the Confessor, and once again, the Confessor just unable to stay with a leading group of cars.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of setup these guys are running, but I think it might just be I think Confessor's running slightly more aero so he can get the corners, but he's losing out on the straights, which is why this sort of weird effect is happening as everyone's pulling away from him, but he seems to be gaining a little bit back through the corners, but down the straights he's nowhere really, and yeah, so this is going to be a frantic, and Sly Guy just made it interesting for himself. So he's got a 3-second penalty as well.
Oh, and Netsky's got another penalty now as well. So,
wow.
Well, this is a huge opportunity here for Pierre Papi, but he's currently 4.4 seconds away from the race leader. So as it stands, Sly Guy's still in a decent position, but nevertheless, Netsky now though, with about 6 seconds that he's got, is potentially at risk of dropping maybe a couple positions lower than he perhaps would have done. But interesting to see how it works out. But I've got to say, one driver here who is looking in a very good spot to get on the podium here, perhaps. Again, one driver who we maybe didn't think would end up on the podium tonight is Danestar. His lack of penalties means that as it stands, I'm pretty certain he's looking good for P3.
Yeah, I am doing the maths. I think Netsky will drop to P4. It's going to be tight, and we won't know. Like I said, I don't think we'll know until everyone's crossed the line. But Arnold's penalty is not really going to change much down the lower reaches of the points there. But he's currently in P10, and there's a move there for Toma on Confessor. Oh, is it? Is he going to get back through? Yes, he is. That is a multi-shaft going off for P7 there. And OP Zane could well do... Oh, no. Confessor's round.
Confessor spun round, and that's identical to what happened to Legend earlier on in this race. Turn 15 proving to be a difficult spot there. Tyres just lighting up, and unfortunately the back end just getting away from the Confessor. I've got to say, full credit, was fighting so hard for that position, and unfortunately just it kind of just went away from him at Pullman turn. But he's still in P10, so points still looking very, very likely, particularly with Ryderdal and Konzo sort of drifting away towards the back of the field. I wonder if Ryderdal has pitted again to maybe go for a fastest lap outside the top 10. That wouldn't actually be the worst strategy because he was in P12 anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good call, but he's got to be careful when he's done that, because otherwise he might not get a chance to try and set it. But at the moment, this is the part of the race where I thought the soft tyres might start to fall away a bit, but I don't think it's really going to matter all that much with the double safety car period that we did have. I was only anticipating the one, which helped, but yeah, it's still all to play for. But Netsky's in serious jeopardy of not getting on the podium, and Legend is in P4. Putting the pressure on Pierre Papi, who's also putting the pressure on Netsky, and we're going to have a grandstand finish here. Sly Guy is way out in front at the moment, so this battle really is for the final 2 slots on the podium, and I have absolutely no idea who's going to do that. I mean, you've got Danestar, as you mentioned earlier. He's in great position for a podium, as is Legend, I think, but the maths is not quite done yet. Ryderdal with another 3 seconds there, but we are on the final lap of 29 laps to do, and Sly Guy is just coasting round these...
Oh, Legend's gone for a dive on the inside of Pierre Papi, and he's made it stick into turn 3. I had sort of one eye open there. Daystar's made his way past Tom Robbo as well in the background. Didn't quite see what happened there, but a super late move from Legend takes P3 off Pierre Papi. It won't really matter with penalty-wise, but nevertheless, that was a super move, and probably Courtney Williams slightly napping there. I've got to say, some of the overtakes we've seen here and just the racing in general has been utterly superb.
It has been absolutely insane, hasn't it? The battles we've seen tonight, just think if it's like this all season, it's going to be mouth-watering prospects. But Sly Guy is in control of these final laps, and I think it's going to be Pierre Papi and Danestar finish on the podium. Neski will be 4th and Legend 5th, I think, at maths, but we'll just stay posted for another couple of moments as we find out exactly what the order's going to be. And Sly Guy is rounding the final corner to open the DRS, but he doesn't need it. He's that far in front, he could reverse over the line to win the Australian Grand Prix. And let's see who finishes where else.
Yeah, super job from Sly Guy, and across the line to go. Pierre Papi into second, Danestar third, Tom Robbo takes P4, so Netsky down to P5 at the end. The only Toma in 6th, Legend 7th, Zane takes 8th, with Nipidius and Arno completing the top 10. The Confessor will be 11th, and then Ryderdal in P12. So Netsky ultimately, thanks to that second corner cutting penalty, only P5 in the end. And Joe, for all that hard work that he's put in through that race, he'll almost be thinking, you know, I feel like I deserve a bit better than that, because he's put up such a fight, and in the end he's only P5, but it's Sly Guy that wins. It's Pierre Papi in second, and it's Danestar that's third. And I've got to be honest, coming into this race, if you'd have asked me to predict a podium, I'm not sure that's a podium I would have gone with.
No, it's going to take a brave man, just like people that put a bit of a punt on Russell getting a podium last weekend in Real F1. It would have taken something like that, but no disrespect to anyone, but I don't think this would have been the podium we had on the books either. But it's almost time to pick a drivers of the day, but I'll let you take us through the provisional results as you do that. Think of who you think is going to be driver of the day, and I'll give you mine shortly.
Yep, okay, so let's go to the classifier. Well, the provisional results, of course, stewards' inquiries could have a say in that post-race, but nevertheless, Sly Guy it is with the win. We got Pierre Papi in second, Danestar third, Tom Robbo 4th, Netsky in 5th, the only Tomat in 6th, Legends 7th, we've got Zane in 8th, Nipidius 9th, Arnau in 10th, for Confessor in 11th, Ryderdal 12th, and Konzo in 13th, the last of the finishers, with Khalifa, Owen and Josh sadly not finishing the first race. The fastest lap outside the top 10, unsurprisingly, went to Ryderdal after that late stop, and I mean, that just shows how good that Sly Guy lap time was. He was only a couple of tenths off Ryderdal's lap time at the end, and he will get an extra point for getting the fastest lap inside the top 10. So, all in all, an incredible day for Sly Guy. Silly Sly Guy. In terms of a driver of the day, this is tough. I'll actually let you nominate yours first, because I'm still thinking about mine.
Okay, this is the point of the stream where I usually make the commentators' life a nightmare, because I usually pick an outside the box pick and they usually go safe, so I hope something changes here. But the driver of the day and the question I will ask them is going to go to Tom Robbo. He started outside the top 10 and finished 4th. He had a solid race. I didn't really see him making many mistakes. So the question I'd like to ask him was this always going to be on when you... Did you think it was possible when you put the mediums on to start the race, or is this just a bonus of the later safety cars?
Okay, good stuff, and I do like that pick. Tom Robbo had a very good race. For me, I've been crossing my mind between a few different drivers, but I'm going to settle on OP Pierre Papi. That's going to be my pick for driver of the day. And my question to him will basically be, you know, with all the battling that was going on in front of you, was it an active decision of yours to stay out of the battling? Or was it just a case of maybe you just weren't quite as quick as them and you weren't able to battle them? So was there any tactics behind your decision to stay out of the fighting, or was it just a case of how the race went? And yeah, so that's our 2 nominations for driver of the day. And I've got to say, there was plenty of nominations we could have thrown in there. So you know, well done to a lot of the drivers out there tonight. A really good race to watch. Plenty of great battling, and to be honest, if this is the first round, I'm excited to see what was going to come up over the course of the rest of the season.
Yeah, it is going to be sensational stuff if they can provide racing like that every week. I think we're in for a treat, as are the drivers. But before we finish off tonight, I would just like to take another chance to thank our magnificent sponsors here of Next Level Racing, with providing an NLR Direct Drive stand to the Driver of the Season, which is a new award. in One Hub Racing, and of course you have 3M Sim Racing. They sponsor the league by providing a pair of their sim racing gloves to the driver with the most combined poles and fastest laps. So we have a couple of drivers in the running for that already. And of course our partners here are Vespertine, the support our championship prizes, and of course ERT with the ERT Going Get Stuff Award, which is for all the drivers which don't necessarily win a trophy but answer all the media obligations and attend all races. And that's pretty much what they're for, which again is another cool thing about One Hub Racing, is that every point matters for them and every driver matters to the league, and that is just a fantastic league to be in. And I'm going to hand back to you now so we can probably end the stream.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic league to be a part of, and it's great to see so many drivers rewarded, no matter how the races go, and perhaps no matter what their pace is, which is what is fantastic to see. Just quickly as well, there is still one spot available in this Pinnacle tier as far as I'm aware. So if you are interested in joining the league, you feel like you could maybe take the battle to Sly Guy, Netski and all the rest of them, just visit www.onehub.racing.com or contact us via one of our social media accounts. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and also as well if you want to subscribe to our Twitch and our YouTube to check up all the latest races, and of course join us next Friday for all the races at Bahrain. But from myself, Jake, and from Matt, that is all we've got time for here tonight, and we'll catch you next week for Bahrain. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.